In case you were not aware, Royal Caribbean revamped their main dining room menus in the last couple of months. My wife and I were able to sneak away for a quick 3-day cruise aboard the Liberty of the Seas, and this was our first experience with the new dining options. Royal Caribbean has stated that the reason behind the new main dining room menu is an effort to try and reduce the dining time on the cruises. They expressed that a common complaint among the guests was that the dining times were taking too long, taking sometimes 90 minutes, sometimes close to 2 hours, and this was an effort for them to try and minimize or shorten the time that's spent in the main dining room so that you can go off and enjoy other activities on the boat. The new goal for Royal Caribbean is to have the dining experience closer to 1 hour to 1 hour and 10 minutes. With regards to this cruise, we definitely saw them hit the 1 hour to around an hour and 15-minute mark for the evenings that we had in the main dining room. Now, on previous cruises, we've had dining times that have also been close to that, but we've also been on the other extreme where we've had evenings that have dragged on for way too long, and it just seemed like we were never going to get out of the main dining room. So with regard to wanting to shorten the experience, it does seem like it's been able to make it a little more efficient, and at least in our 3-day cruise, they were able to hit that time mark of being around 60 to 70 minutes. I personally tend to think that this is more of a cost-saving effort on Royal Caribbean's part, and less because of the dining time being too long. It just seems a little peculiar, a little fishy that they rolled out the lobster tail limit. In case you didn't know, you're now limited to one lobster tail on Royal Night for each person, and any lobster tail beyond that, you incur an additional charge of $18.99 plus gratuity. So it just seems a little fishy that at the exact same time they decided to change the menu, they decided to limit the lobster intake. So for me, it feels more like a cost-saving effort than it does an effort to shorten the dining experience. Now, this will be a truncated review since it was only a 3-day cruise and we didn't get to experience all the new dining evenings, but we did get a taste for the new menus and we can talk about our experience on those nights. In case you're not aware, each evening is a different theme, such as Mexican night, Mediterranean night, Italian night, and several others as well. For our short trip, we experienced Welcome Aboard night, as well as Italian and Caribbean night. Night 1 was Welcome Aboard night, and for this evening, I decided to choose the Maryland-style crab cake as my appetizer, the Southern fried chicken as my main dish, and the Boston cream pie for my dessert. My wife chose to go with the chilled shrimp cocktail, the pan-roasted fish fillet, and some vanilla ice cream. Now, the menu did have some of the old classics, such as Caesar salad, New York strip steak, and the royal cheesecake. These were options that were available every night of your cruise in the past. They did appear on this menu, and actually, for the duration of our cruise, the Caesar salad and the New York strip were available every single night. So while they did get rid of the classics menu, they did have the Caesar salad and the New York strip each of the evenings. My fried chicken dinner was adequate, and my wife's fish, it was average, but a little on the dry side, she said. The disappointment for me is that none of the food throughout this cruise was memorable, and it never left me wanting to talk about it once it was done. The presentation of the food was just okay. So if you look at the chicken dinner, for example, it reminded me of being able to go to a local Golden Corral buffet restaurant, and my plate that I would get there with chicken and the sides looked very similar to what Royal Caribbean presented to me. Moving on to night 2, we experienced Italian night. For this evening, my wife decided to go with the Caesar salad, the pan-seared filet of sole, and a crumbly oat and berry bar. Now, the Caesar salad was as expected. It's a classic Caesar, kind of difficult to mess that up. The filet of sole was probably her favorite of the meals that she had on the ship. It was very well cooked, and she just really enjoyed that dish. Now, for her dessert, she did order the crumbly oat and berry bar. Now, this was very disappointing. It was probably about 90% granola on the top, and then if you went to the very bottom of the dish, it had very little in terms of berries that were on the bottom. So it was just felt like the proportion was not right at all for this dessert, and it was just the granola was overpowering and overwhelming for the dish. As for my dining options on the Italian night, I decided to go with the crispy Parmesan arancini as my appetizer, the chicken parmesan as the main course, and the classic tiramisu for my dessert. So the arancini was actually very good. For those that don't know, which I didn't know either, this is a fried rice ball covered in panko breadcrumbs, and this was probably my favorite appetizer from the cruise. The chicken parmesan was okay, but it had very little sauce on the dish. I ended up requesting additional sauce on the side. That way I can put more on the chicken and also on the noodles. The tiramisu was average, but I remember being on cruises in the past, and it just was more memorable on those previous cruises. This time, I don't know, it felt like it was missing something as opposed to the previous times I had had tiramisu on Royal Caribbean cruises. Since this was a shortened cruise, only 3 days, we didn't get to experience the Royal Night where you have the lobster tail as an option, and instead we had Caribbean Night. For Caribbean Night, I originally tried ordering the jerk seasoned pork chop, but was persuaded from the server not to do so because she said it was typically very dry. Now, this definitely surprised me. I had never experienced a meal on Royal Caribbean where the server was actually dissuading me from ordering something on the menu. So that was a little disappointing, and that the servers, not that they were dissuading me from it, but the fact that they recognize that something may not be satisfactory before it's even served and dissuading passengers from even ordering it. So instead of ordering the jerk seasoned pork chop, I opted for the roasted Caribbean chicken. For the appetizer, I went with the crispy coconut jumbo shrimp, and for the dessert, I had the royal chocolate cake. On this evening, my wife didn't find any of the options appealing, so she instead opted for Chops grilled filet for an additional $19.99 plus gratuity. With regards to my meal, the coconut shrimp was actually very good. I have no complaints about that. I would order it again. The roasted Caribbean chicken that I ordered for my main dish was actually very good. I enjoyed that very much. I have no complaints about that. It was very moist. It wasn't dry. It had good flavor. This was probably my favorite of the main courses that I ordered on my 3 evenings. My only it's not even really a complaint, but my only reservation about Caribbean Night was that it was on the same day as Coco Cay. So during the day when I went to Coco Cay, I ordered the barbecue chicken. So for evening when I got the Caribbean chicken, it just felt like I was doubling up on the same dish. It wasn't, because during the day it was more of a barbecue seasoning, and in the evening it was more of like a dry Caribbean rub. But I had a little bit of hesitancy because I felt like I was maybe ordering the same dish again. As for the dessert, you can't really go wrong with the classic royal chocolate cake. This is one of the classics they offered before. It's no longer available every night, but I did order it on this night, and I was very satisfied with it. It was just as I remembered from previous cruises. Now, with regards to my wife's dish, she ordered the chops filet. This was actually very disappointing. It came very overcooked. She ordered a medium steak, and it arrived well done. They did ask if she wanted it sent back to get a replacement, but we didn't feel like waiting the additional 20 minutes for the replacement to be cooked, so she instead opted to eat the well-done steak, even though she was very disappointed. Now, to their credit, they did decide that they weren't going to charge her for this, but it was still disappointing on our end because, she decided to splurge for the filet, and you would think that something from Chops would be good, but it just really wasn't. Like I said, this was a short cruise, so we didn't get to experience all the menus. We just got a taste with the Welcome Aboard night, the Caribbean night, and the Italian night. Overall, based on this short trip, I do think that we're going to be a little bit less satisfied with the changes due to a couple of factors. For myself, it's not a big deal. You can pretty much put any meal in front of me, and I'm going to eat it, and I'm going to be satisfied enough. Now, for my wife and my daughter, it's a little bit different. My daughter wasn't traveling on this trip with us, but she does go on cruises with us, and when they go on these cruises, they just tend to have a more limited palate. They're not happy with anything that is on the menu. So they prefer the safety of knowing certain classic items are always available. They can always default to the New York Strip, or my wife always would get the classic shrimp cocktail every evening, so she was definitely disappointed that wasn't available. So for them, it's nice having the reassurance that they don't have to go into an evening worried about if they'll be able to find something that they would enjoy. With the new menu, they're going to have to be willing to try new items. And for some people, they don't necessarily want to do that when they go on a trip. They just they know what they like, and they would like to stick to that rather than having to deviate from that, especially since they're spending all this money on the trip. So for us, I think overall, we're not going to be as satisfied due to the fact that the classics are now gone. Now, it did tend to shorten the dining time, but that wasn't really an issue for us in the past. I'm not sure that if that's a big enough reason for Royal Caribbean to make this change. I really do think it's more of them trying to have a cost-saving measure than it is to actually try to shorten the dining time. I hope this short video is helpful for you to gain some kind of insight in terms of the new offerings that Royal Caribbean has for their main dining room options. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them below, and I'll answer them as quickly as I can. Thank you. Until next time.